Okay, we're live.
Okay.
All right. If you're tuning in, thank you so much. Excited to have this conversation today. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Yeah.
All right. I need to make sure I record as well
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is San Gabriel Unified Arts Week this week. My name is Samantha Tyson. I'm the host of Arts Week. I'm also the Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator for San Gabriel Unified. All week long, we've been pulling our community of creativity and showcasing it as our first inaugural Arts Fest. And we're super excited about that. Today, as part of our special webinar series, I am so excited to present a conversation on the benefits of arts education. Why arts? We have two amazing guests with us, and these are personal heroes of mine, and I'm so honored that they are here with us to have this awesome conversation. Please welcome Frank Heuser and Evelyn Serrano.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. We'll have to read the bio. Frank Heuser is head of music education at the Herb Alpert School of Music at UCLA. He's previously taught at the U of Oregon, Cal State Los Angeles, East Los Angeles College, Chapman College, and public schools in LA and Orange counties. He's an active adjudicator and clinician throughout Southern California, and he's a presenter at arts conferences worldwide. Research interests include the study of motor control in musicians, the understanding and prevention of performance problems in wind players, and issues surrounding music perception, cognition, and effective pedagogy. He's published articles in Medical Problems of Performing Artists, the Southeastern Journal of Music Education, the International Journal of Children's Spirituality, Research Studies in Music Education Research, the Psychology of Music, the Southeastern Journal of Music Education, and the Philosophy of Music Education Review. His DMA, Doctorate of Music, sorry.
Doctorate of Musical Arts.
Thank you. Doctorate of Musical Arts is from the University of Southern California. His master's is from Yale University and his bachelor's from Cal State University, Los Angeles. Cal State?
Thanks.
Evelyn Serrano is an LA-based Cuban experimental multimedia artist, educator, and independent curator working at the intersection of creative placemaking, memory, community engagement, activism, and future thinking. She serves as co-artistic director of Nuestro Lugar. She founded the Nomad Lab, which you can find out more about that. Has taught at the Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts since 2006. She's lectured and led workshops at the New World School of the Arts in Miami, the CEART in Mexicali, the Center for the Arts in Eagle Rock, and the University of Texas in Dallas. She is currently the Director of Arts Integration and Visual Arts Specialist at the Los Feliz Charter School for the Arts. Ms. Serrano received her MFA from the California Institute of the Arts, her master's from Alliant International University, and her bachelor's from the Maryland Institute College of Art. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Frank, we're going to start with you. Why the why?
Why? Okay. You have a whole session on why the arts, and at this point of my life, I ask why the why. Why do we keep asking why the arts? And for many people, they seem peripheral. They're just something on the side. We can live life without the arts. Yeah, sure. Traditionally, we don't get enough money for them, and we're the first thing that gets cut in any kind of difficulties. This previous year, as soon as the pandemic hit, there were 2 districts in Massachusetts which immediately stopped all music instruction and let their music teachers go because they figured they couldn't afford to do it. Okay, so that's the kind of thing we face all the time. And also, for some reason or other, the art seems very different from life. The people who do art are artists. They aren't normal people. And this has been reinforced, unfortunately, in some very popular literature. Steven Pinker, a cognitive scientist at Harvard, in his book, How the Mind Works, made the statement that music is auditory cheesecake because it serves no function for human evolution. Okay. And this caused a real ruckus in my community. Auditory cheesecake, what do you mean? You know, whereas another really interesting researcher, just a few years later, really made quite a case that everything we do in the arts, literature, music, art, nurtures how our brain becomes more cognitively flexible and enables us to do wonderful things that we couldn't do without the arts. You know, we have our higher level conceptual functions that are a result of thinking in the arts, thinking both verbally and non-verbally. So they are essential. And we're going to go on to that essential nature in the next slide. Sam, next slide. There we go. Yeah. The arts are not separate from what we do in daily life. They have been part of the human life since our beginning. These pictures here of this pig, I think it's about 60,000 years old. It was just found in Indonesia. It's really amazing. Man has had the urge and the need to make art since the beginning of time, since we first evolved. The flute you see a picture in the middle of there is about 8,000 years old, made from bone. So we were making music, we were making art a long time ago. We don't know how much longer or earlier we made music because a lot of the instruments have obviously disappeared. The gentleman on the right here is working with a stone instrument called a lithophone. These are tuned rocks, and people had the urge to get sounds going and music since the beginning, okay? And then we now have evolutionary anthropologists who look very seriously at how the human mind evolved. And Gary Tomlinson, a gentleman at Yale, really is finding evidence for the idea that music did not emerge out of language. It wasn't something special. That music and language both emerged from something that he would call gesture calls, proto-language, that eventually led to both music and language. It was our desire to communicate with one another before we had words, through gestures and through sounds that led to our developing our cognitive capacities to create and to be human. So art has been with us since day one. There's no reason we should not have it going all the time. Okay. So as I've just said, the things we do in art predate what happens in museums, what happens on stages. It is integral to human being. I have here the word communal intentionality. When we engage in artistic behaviors, we work with other people and we show our intentions, they show their intentions, we mold our intentions to each other. This thing, communal intentionality, is what we do in our musical groups. It's what we do when we create a play together. It helps us bond. It makes us care about one another. So we develop empathy. We have better relationships with people. And these are the things the arts do that other things just don't quite function at that same level. And this issue of pattern recognition, a basic function in human cognition is to hunt for patterns in life. And listening to music, we hear patterns, we recognize them, and music becomes meaningful as we hear those patterns. Same thing happens in art. We look for patterns. I mean, when I go to an art museum, I look for the patterns that a specific artist will have, and they'll use them over and over again. So we learn to do this, and this is, again, essential to life going on, okay? Next. Sam.
It's coming.
Oh,
Takes
it's coming.
a second. Yep.
Okay, yes. Okay. So There's no reason why we should not support the arts, because they are part of being human. They also contribute in our schools to a considerable, was that the right one? I think you've gone one slide too far. Could you
There
go?
we go.
There
Is that
we
better?
go. Yes, yes, yes.
Sorry, Frank.
No problem. Um, so we have a lot of wonderful things that the art student schools develop nonverbal understandings. These things that, education is stuck in mathematics and language. And so much of what we do in our daily life is nonverbal in nature. And we really need to nurture this in our young people. And for music, we develop motor skills. We experience goal-directed activities. You know, a kid who's really wants to complete an art project or play a piece of music gets so focused on what they're doing that they develop the ability to concentrate. And that's one thing that'll carry through and to other disciplines. Um, Learning to think critically about more than just your single discipline is super important. Why does some tones put together that becomes a song, We Shall Overcome, have such deep meaning? Because it really hits on very important social issues. And again, I just can't emphasize enough the communal intentionality, how important that is for all of us. Developing empathy, and then we nurture social emotional learning, which is a big important thing factor in all education right now. Now we can go to the next slide. Okay. Okay. And the social emotional learning thing, well, we just had a big webinar from the National Music Teachers Association, yesterday, about the importance of making sure that we teach in ways that our students can connect with one another and connect with their teachers. And I was privileged in the last couple of years to work with 2 graduate students on some really neat research that pointed out to how valuable music is in schools. On the paper, These Are My People, Music Teacher Instructional Practices in School Connectedness by Johanna Gamboa-Crozen. We'll talk a little more in depth on that. And the other one, I Sing Because I'm Happy, the perceived impact of participation in choral music on the identity and development of young Black men, by Marshawn Hyman. Marshawn was just wonderful. He has 2 brothers who are both in prison. And he attributes the fact that he has had a career as a school choral teacher, as a college administrator, and he's continuing in that kind of role with a doctorate degree. He contributes to the fact that he participated in choral music and choral ensembles, where his whole life was nurtured. So let's go and we'll talk a little bit about each of these. Okay. These are my people. School connectedness in ensembles. School connectedness means how a student feels as part of a school or not part of a school. I remember being at a conference a few years back, and 2 psychologists gave us the astounding fact that on any given day, 70% of high school kids are convinced that nobody at a school cares whether they're there or not. Our students who are in music ensembles know that they're needed. They know that they're important. And the way they know is their teachers care about them, and it comes through. And what she did was a qualitative study of looking at music students and music teachers in 3 different middle schools to find out how the kids think about what they're doing in school. Is it important? How do I feel about it? So this, and she got them to write about it. And she was told by other advisors, you won't get middle school kids to write. These kids wrote pages. They were so excited to talk about how they feel. And just a couple of the responses. I love listening to music, but the idea of me being able to play it still blows my mind. The kids love doing this. And then how do I feel? I feel like part of something. I love hearing every section. When my section is taken out, in other words, when they don't play while the other sections play, I learn how crucial my part is, and I love feeling needed. They understand that they are part of something greater than themselves. And that is some of the depths, really important parts of social emotional learning. So and it doesn't matter whether it's middle school, high school, elementary school, we're finding that students feel this way. And then the teacher, a lot of times my colleagues at universities think that school music teachers are conductors. They're only interested in making sure the performance is note perfect and getting excellent ratings. But this one comment here just really, really hit home. Honest, the reason I'm able to have a great life is because the kids sign up for the classes, and they're the reason I'm here. The easiest way to put it is we are colleagues. Think about that. The teacher looks at the student as colleagues. I have sat where they are sitting. It seems like not so long ago. We are connected. These are my people. This deep bond between teacher and student creates an amazing sense of nurturing. And it's not to say this doesn't happen in other classes, but music classes really facilitate this kind of adult learner interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And our young people need adult mentors, and this helps create mentors. Okay, next slide. We can go on, Sam. Yeah. And Marshawn's dissertation, I sing because I'm happy. What he really found out was some very important things from the choir members. A lot of these young African American men had never been part of something other than a classroom being told what to do. And they had no desire to really be in school. But this one, for me, choir is the first time you get to be part of something greater than yourself. Mm. Major change in attitude in that young man. Okay. There's like so many things I can't even explain that I've learned from choir. Make the world look different. Okay. Again, they are sensing a change in themselves because of being part of a group. Getting into choir is very necessary. It's like therapy. I think everyone needs to experience this. And when I go into that class, I just leave happy and smiling. And I'll be in a good mood, so I'm not like getting irritated. And we found those kinds of comments in middle school orchestra, middle school choir, high school choir, elementary school. It is a place where the students can leave behind the academic, the verbal, and the mathematical things, and experience things emotionally together, non-verbally. Super important. In particular, with the young African American students, these young people really felt that they were finding a way to succeed and move ahead in their life. So we're finding increasingly when you have a really good program and a caring teacher, students in all areas, whether they're affluent or not affluent, okay, they really get a lot out of it. Could you go on the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay. So, there we go. Yes. It's a positive environment, and people can pursue goals which they can see are there. They're identifiable. And we saw in middle schools, these factors, real connectedness to ensembles and their schools, by the way, real positive socialization between peers and teachers, positive changes in their mental health when they walk into the room because they know they're going to do something they love. And teachers and students have a collective identity. It is their class, it's their ensemble. When I work with future teachers, I always emphasize it's not my band, not my choir, not my orchestra, it's our ensemble. And boy, that makes a big difference. And again, high school ensembles, particularly for these young African Americans. And by the way, these were there aren't a lot of schools now with just all African-American choirs, which we would have had in Southern California 40 years ago. We had to really hunt for places which had really nice young men that would talk. And they were part of multicultural groups. And being part of these groups enabled them to look for a better future and overcome other challenges in schools. And we know that the choir ensembles really can be a positive, supportive place for young Black men. Okay, next slide. So ultimately, what we do in schools is we help kids become artistic citizens, okay? They realize that the arts are made by people, for people, not by artists for people, not by artists for art consumers, but by people for people, that they can make art. They begin to understand that they have to integrate this into their life and be part of their personal life and part of their community. And in particular, what we do in the arts are social practices. They are really something we do as social beings with and for each other. We have to look at this as part of being ethically guided citizens, okay? And I thought this was really great, that this connected very well with the portrait of what the San Gabriel Unified School District wants to have as their graduates, who are creative thinkers, collaborators, global citizens. They can be empathetic. They can communicate with adults themselves and each other, and they're resilient. They can come back and keep, working for greater goals. So I just thought that this whole idea of an artistic citizen really parallels the long-term goals of your school district, which is really great. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
If I could interject there for a minute, the Portrait of a Graduate is a part of where San Gabriel Unified is an Ed Leader 21 school, and Portrait of a Graduate is the reason for it. It's to reform and evolve our school district from K through 12. So we are in the process of establishing ourselves as a Portrait of a Graduate school district. And these are the 6 competencies that we as a community decided were the 6 competencies that we want all of our graduates to be strong in. And it's going to redesign everything from assessment to curriculum choices to collaboration. And it's a district-wide concept. And I love that you connected it to artistic citizens. It is the same, because everything in arts is along those lines.
Yeah, well, arts education is really going to contribute to your goal here. So
agreed. Thank you, Frank.
Okay. And we're lucky to continue with Evelyn.
Next slide. Oh, sorry, Evelyn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's references that if everyone goes back, they can access those. So
awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Frank. Evelyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Buenas tardes or buenos días. I'm not sure when you'll be watching these. My name is Evelyn Serrano, and I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to be in dialogue with Samantha and with Frank. I just want to mark the day. Today is March 25th, and I'm sending out lots of love to educators out there, especially our arts educators who are just creating inspiring spaces for our students and for their families to engage in learning that is meaningful, that is for so many of our kiddos is life-changing. It's the difference between engaging in school and not. And especially now during distance learning, I know a lot of our schools are also transitioning to in-person. You all are there being your creative selves, your flexible selves to make incredibly wondrous things to happen for your students. So I appreciate it. I just want to send appreciation your way, and appreciate Samantha for creating space for these conversations. So thank you. Frank, I was just really resonating with what you were talking about, how vital the arts are, and the fact that we live in a society where there are places and spaces where the arts might not be prioritized feels to me, and I'm sure to you all, like a social justice and equity issue, right? So the communities who seem to be able to quote unquote afford the arts do, right? And then we have communities where that becomes how can we afford the arts? How can we bring them, and what are we going to let go of? Where perhaps I love to kind of offer a challenge to that and think about ways in which, perhaps the question needs to be different. How can we not afford the arts, right? Like it is such an essential element of our young people understanding who they are, developing a sense of self-agency in relationship to their community of learners and the adults who are, fostering their learning. The arts are a way of knowing the world. It's a way of knowing ourselves, but also knowing ourselves in relationship to other people's expressions and understandings, cultural understandings. It is a way of interacting with the world and sense making. I love that word, like the idea of sense making the world. I understand the world in many different ways. One of the vital ways that I do is through the arts. And then the idea that I truly believe this, whether you're self-professed artist or not, you are a culture maker. Every human being is a culture maker. So how do we create spaces in our schools and in our communities to just make art and be artful and be creative and see the world through many different perspectives and understand that you're an original, beautiful human being, and that the folks in the room are original, beautiful human beings with incredible ideas as well. And that is all great. And so that is I just feel like the arts are a tool, an incredible, powerful tool in our arsenal for our young people to see how special they are, how powerful they are, and how through the arts and of course through other content areas, they can see themselves as the agents of transformation in their communities. So the arts are not just a content area, just a subject in your day. The arts can be a place in which I enter my agency, in which I understand my power in my community, and I can see myself as a citizen, as an active, engaged citizen in my community. So I just wanted to offer those thoughts to connect with what Frank was saying so beautifully, and his students have been working on so beautifully. It's like, how can we look at the arts as a way to understand our power and understand our sense of agency? So I brought I brought an example I wanted to share with you. This first one is a second grade project. And what you see over here is a definition that our school adopted. I've been using it for many years, I think about 10 years. It's not, I didn't author it, as the Kennedy Center's definition of arts integration, which was just so powerfully researched. Lots of folks were involved in arriving to these very precise crafted statement of what arts integration is, and I just feel super aligned with it. Our school decided to formally adopt it about 6 years ago. So the idea of arts integration being an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. So the idea of constructing understanding feels really important. You're not perhaps copying. You're actually creating new knowledge through the art form. That feels, and of course you're showing your understanding as well. Then it goes on with students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. So often you will see the arts in a role, which I think is super legitimate and beautiful, but looking at the arts as a supporting element to other content areas. I think that's awesome, by the way. And you could also think of the arts as a way in which it comes together in conversation and dialogue with another content area. So you could be holding math objectives and art objectives equally with equal weight, helping the student create a window into their own learning and their own demonstration of learning. So I just wanted to offer these as a it just grounded our work in the arts so much. All right, next. So this example, these slides document a project that we just completed with our second graders. This was a result of something that at my school we call deep dives. And I want to acknowledge that it's collaboratively created between our amazing second grade teachers, 3 of them, and myself. So I want to represent that this is just a result of weekly meetings of about half hour each, where I'm syncing up with the work that's happening in the classroom with the classroom teachers, and they're syncing up with what's happening in the arts. So this was all distance learning, and just very excited to share this with you. With this unit, we were trying to look at ELA, science, and visual arts as kind of the set of tools that the kiddos would engage in. We jump-started the project with, at our school, we have something called the Artists in Residency program that's funded by the PTA. The funds are not large, but we use them, I feel like just had such a meaningful impact in our community. So one of the folks that we've been able to bring was this year, Nick Humminberg, who's a native Apache and Cahuilla California steward educator. He's remarkable. And he was talking to the second graders about the importance of native plants and endangered species, California endangered species. And the kids were just so, oh my gosh, they had so many questions for him. They couldn't believe that, 10 years from now, about 500 species can disappear in our California. They were impressed of how rich California is in terms of the diversity. And so I think they really drew a connection to what they could potentially do to bring awareness to the issues of endangered species in our California after they met with this gentleman. Next. And so, these are some of the slides that from that presentation. Next, he talked to us about the importance of plant species, animal species, and then the connection and the interaction between them. This was also in the context, we could go next, in the context of the students in science understanding the life cycle of a plant, understanding pollinators, understanding the relationships between plants and animals. So he was able to share a lot of that information with us. Next. Yeah. Next. All right, perfect. Yes. So these were the science goals, parts of the plants, functions, seed dispersal, the importance of native plants and animals, plant-animal relationships, and native ecosystem stewardship. Next. So the kids were so excited. We always at our school want to capitalize on the kids being fired up. And so we said, okay, will you be open? Will you be excited? We always ask the teachers, the kiddos first. Will you be excited about creating a campaign so other folks will learn what you've learned about native plants and how important they are? And you all are learning about persuasive writing, so maybe we can combine it with that. And of course they say yes, and we're like, yes, I'm glad they said yes. So we took on the idea of like, okay, what do we need to create a super powerful persuasive campaign to inform others about the importance of native plants and creatures. Next. We can go to the next one. Yes, awesome. So actually, could we, Oh, there we go. Visual arts goals. So yes, on my end, our goals for visual arts were, we were really diving into observational drawing and just like slowing down with the eyes of a scientist and an artist who can really look at plants closely, creatures closely. We were also studying some painting techniques, and the kids were experimenting with all kinds of crazy things in terms of like, just how do you paint? Where do you get pigments? All these kinds of things. And then the idea of like, how do you lay out a poster that can be, communicate ideas clearly? Next. So on Instagram, I follow the account of this incredible artist. She's a botanical artist. Her name is Tina Curiel. And she's like cuckoo for California native plants and animals. And so I'm like, okay, maybe if I reach out to Tina, she could be our inspiration artist and she can give us some tips. And I'm like, I told the kids, well, you know, I reached out, let's see how it goes. But in the meantime, let's look at her work and see what we can learn about it. And so we were looking at a lot of her work. If you go next, we were just like, it allows us to kind of build language around this specific way of making art, very realistic, very detailed, observation driven. So we were learning in the meantime about all these wonderful native species that she's kind of obsessed about. Next. And then, so I reached out to Tina and she said, okay, Evelyn, send me the kids questions. If they have questions, send me questions. Okay. I'm like, kids, the artists returned my message. They were just so excited. So we gathered a bunch of questions for Tina. And these were, I just wanted to give you a little sampler of some of the students' questions for the artist. What do you do when you make a mistake? What inspires you? What are some tips you have for painting and drawing? What is your favorite animal and plant, et cetera, et cetera. It was just a long list of things. Next. And yes, have you ever drawn a dragonfly? I just love their questions. We probably won't have time to play the video too much, but Tina, a couple of weeks later, she made a video. She sent it to us with all the answers to the kids' questions. And I think it just really drove home for kids the idea that the world is filled with resources in many different ways. Some of the resources we have, come through the generosity of people, people wanting to help you, want to support you, want to support your passion. And so I think they learn a good lesson of like, if you have a question, if you're excited about somebody's work, just reach out and see, maybe they'll say no, and that's fine. But maybe they'll say yes, and they'll have incredible resources, as these artists showed us. She created a beautiful video. I don't know, Samantha, if you want to play like.
Oh, play a little bit,
maybe
absolutely.
Hi, artists of Miss Serrano's second grade class. Thank you so much for sending me such thoughtful questions. I was so incredibly excited and inspired to hear about your project. The more people that talk to local government about getting native plants in public spaces, the better. And I know that through your posters, you're gonna have a huge impact. I'm gonna do my best to answer some of your questions.
What made you get into art?
So my grandmother was an artist, and as a kid, she would take me to the local wildlife hospital and rehabilitation center. It was a really great place to see animals up close and personal and actually draw them from life. And that was a really great foundation for me in my art and my love of animals, and it's just stuck with me ever since.
How old were you when you started painting?
I think I was about 5 years old.
So she didn't just answer questions, she put a full-blown production for them. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. And she kept texting me, Evelyn, I'm sorry, I don't have it yet, but I really want to do something so special for the kids. It was just so generous. We were so thankful, and it really impacted the kids, the students, the artists in their process. It was wonderful. So we got all these tips from her. Okay, and then next. There we go. And then these are some just sample questions that we were going through. So how do artists improve their drawing skills was one that we investigated. And we could go next. There's a series of, we were looking actually at Tina Curiel's photos of native plants and animals and learning about blind contour drawing and other drawing techniques. We could keep going. That's another question we use. What are some painting techniques that you can use to create a background for a poster? So we were experimenting with paint. Next, that's some of the experiments that we were kind of inspired by. Yes, next. We were doing a lot of research using these resource calscape.org, so the kids understood that native plants are very localized. So they enter their address and figure out, okay, what's local to my particular region. Next. Yeah, these are some of the information that kind of like just drove us, endangered plants, endangered animals. And they decided, most of them decided to focus their research on endangered species, endangered native species. With the next one, with ALA goals, the teachers were doing a lot of work with the students on persuasive writing. So we decided to combine that work with their campaign. And so the students decided who to write letters to, persuasive letters to compel folks, inform folks about the importance of stewarding native plants and animals. Next. And I just put here some examples of the letters that they wrote. So yeah, it's important to keep our native plants safe and to protect them. We must protect them in order for these plants not to go extinct. So that was Jaylene's. And I just have other ones there. Emmy wrote to her grandpa. So the previous one was to the city council. They decided who they wanted to kind of reach out to. So Emmy was to her grandpa, and as part of the work, they had to do a lot of research on the species, but also what are the reasons why they're suffering and how can we help. Next. Another example. Yeah. Neighborhood council, some folks. This one I was just very proud because this is one of our second graders who decided, I don't really want to engage with a project, but I want to create a website that's a fundraising website. And so this second grader used Google Sites, and I did not teach him how to do it. He figured it out because he was so excited and compelled to create this for his peers. So he created a fundraising website. He created a gallery with the students' work, and it linked to an organization, the California Native Plant Society. That was an idea of the students that was like, oh, let's just fundraise. So that was an example of something the kids did.
So do you want to visit the website or?
If you like.
Sure. Oh.
Can't be reached.
Oh, no. Oh, I think it's
my firewall. That's my fault. That's
right.
our district Wi-Fi. Apologies.
No worries.
Get it back here.
So proud of creating that. And part of that idea of the website came up because we asked the students, what do you think needs to be part of the campaign? And so one of the students said, oh, we should be fundraising. And so he's like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna, he decided that was his interest. And yeah, this was the wrap up. We practiced our presentations. The students met with their community, including their parents, and also some community partners that are partners to our school. And our fourth graders were invited as well, because our fourth graders are really deep into the study of California, just general, from landmarks to history to native species. And so they presented to their fourth grade peers, and they used the letters to as part of their presentation as well as their artwork. And I think I have examples of their posters next. So these are some of their finished posters. Next. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah, I think that might be the last one.
What is the timeline of an assignment like that?
This was 3 weeks long. 3 weeks long, yeah. Meeting twice a week with the kiddos.
Mhm.
So meeting for half an hour every time. So it was about, let's see, about 3 hours with me, but they were doing a lot of research on their own, and with the teachers, they were doing a lot of the writing and research as well. And then we had a separate week towards the end of the trimester where they did the presentation. So that was how to do it. Generally, our big projects are about 3 weeks to 4 weeks.
Mhm.
Mm.
And what are some of the reactions of the students as they're going through it? And I'm sure you've been doing this type of education as a focus at your school for numerous years. So as the kids every year, as they go on in your school, you know, from first through fifth, or what have you seen in your students from year to year as the impact of what that type of education is doing for them?
Well, at our school, for like from grade to grade, I might have projects that are quote unquote just art projects. Like we might be quote unquote just drawing, you know. I don't think it's as simple as that, but anyways, one day we might be creating a self-portrait or drawing a still life. So those projects also, I want to work on skills with them too. I had to say though, like as part of our school's mission, the idea of a civically engaged student and very, very project-based driven constructivist education is at the heart of a lot of what we do. So what I see with my students that just like makes my heart just grow is they understand themselves as change makers. And as a matter of fact, with second grade, that's the theme for the year. You're studying other people who are change makers in the arts and, you know, social justice, you name it, science, etc. And then we see ourselves as social justice, you know, folks as engaged citizens. Doesn't matter if I'm in second grade or if I'm a 30-year-old, I'm still a citizen and I have tools. And so some of these tools might look like a poster or writing a letter, you know. So what I see is every step of the way, the idea of, you know, or the challenge that one could offer to them, like, do you think you can build change around these, is like second nature. Yes, of course I can, you know, and I have this idea and I have this idea, and they kind of riff off of each other. So the idea that they also see that they're part of a community of problem solvers is very important, I think. That if Jaylene has an idea, I might be able to support that idea. You know, we don't all have to support that idea, but maybe some of us have the interest or this. So the idea that the way we are teaching creates spaces for the kiddos' interests, sensibilities, subjectivities, is very easy then to put skills training in there because they're already bought in, like they're excited about the project and they see it as their project. They don't see it as Ms. Serrano's project or the teacher's project. This is their work. I think it's clear that they develop a sense of self-confidence. They see themselves as agents of change, decision makers, problem solvers. We talk a lot about problem solving, and having a toolbox. Their toolbox gets larger with through having these artistic tools, I think.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we can, yes. So just very briefly, this was another project. So I wanted to showcase an early elementary, and then this is a middle school project. We called it Art for Change. Last year, end of 2020, we had our big election season, and the students were all just very opinionated about it. They really,
It's especially a big one.
Really?
oh my goodness.
I can't imagine why.
They had a lot of thoughts about it. So we're like, okay, so in middle school, different grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade were doing it differently, but they were all in one way or another looking at the history and principles of democracy. 6th grade was doing it through the study of ancient Greece. Eighth grade was looking at government structures and the history of those, like where the principles of democracy kind of came from. And so what we decided to do is we decided to partner with LAvote.net. And we asked the students, would you be interested in bringing awareness to vote? You know, we want to get the vote out. Prior to this, we had a session at our school called Be the Change, where we had invited an expert to speak. And he said, you know, we're really worried because most people 18 to 25, they don't vote. They're not voting. We're getting folks older than 25. And so the students were like, wow, that is incredible. You know, like if I had the power to vote, I would vote. So they decided, you know what, let's take this on. Let's create short videos to bring awareness to how to get engaged, how to vote, how to register. And so I think we can go to the next one. On my end, they were learning a lot about like just basic principles of media, critical media literacy, what's the language of video and things like that. And they were put at the service of understanding how to create a compelling video, informational video. They created a lot of questions for an expert, interview him, gather a lot of research. They also interview their families. These are just stills of part of the interviews that they did with their families about what do you know about voting? Will you vote? What will keep you out of out of the process? And so we share that knowledge with each other. These are examples of that. Yeah. Next one. Yeah. So these are the kids interviewing their family members. And that was really telling. Like they understood the reasons why people would be interested in voting or not interested in voting, like what was in their way. So they utilized that in their videos. The next slide, we talked a lot about storyboarding and camera angles, camera shots. So this was like their planning process for that. And next. And yeah, I just have a couple of short examples of videos that the students.
Hey, have you voted?
Do you know half Americans don't vote?
But I think we can make that change. Why do you vote?
I vote because
I want to make a change. I vote to not only help my generation, but future generations too.
there's so many different ways to vote.
How, you may ask? You must be 18 years and older in order to register and be a U.S. citizen. Voters can drop off their ballots at the official drop box locations and voting centers. You can also vote through mail, but make sure you sign it. You could also vote in person at your local voting center.
If you are unable to vote, make sure to inform family and friends.
Don't forget,
Your vote matters and it will make a difference. Vote! Vote! On my way to vote!
Love it.
That was an 8th grader, Amarisa, and then this is Ivalus, who's 6th grader.
Gotta get out there.
Vote. Everybody's super importante.
That's a 6th grader?
Yes, a 6th grader. And they were using a tool that actually it was new to us because of that distance learning. I usually would have used iMovie and we have it loaded in the school computers.
Mm-hmm.
But because I didn't, we didn't have assurances that everybody was using a Mac, we found a tool that I highly recommend. It's called Canva.com.
Oh, yeah.
And it's free, and it's wonderful for teachers because you can create your own classrooms within Canva. And so, yes, these tool, you can do posters, you can do videos, relatively simple videos. I think she did, this student use iMovie for this one specifically.
Could have been a professional ad.
Yeah, really remarkable.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for presenting those awesome projects. These are the when it comes to arts integration, we talk about the application of the reason why students retain what they learn is the emotional impact that the arts add as an element to their learning process. And it's just so impactful. So thank you for that. Oh, Sandy Seaford is here. She says hello. She's in the panel.
Okay. Evelyn, a quick question about native plants. Are you at all familiar with the Theodore Payne Foundation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. If you can ever get the kids out there, boy, they do such a wonderful job with native plants out there.
Absolutely. We actually, one other element that we decided to do is just to kind of keep going. We created a campaign that's in play right now, where we call it Seeds of Change. It's the first year of this campaign at our school, and it's part of a larger initiative to acknowledge Native, our land acknowledgement, but also working with Native people who are the holders of these knowledge in so many different ways. So uplifting those voices. And so in working with them, one thing we identify is like every one of us has the ability to create change. And some of the ways we can do that are very simple. So we decided, okay, let's do this Seeds of Change campaign. It's open to the whole school community. And the goal is to plant 1 million poppy seeds before Earth Day. And so the Theodore Payne Foundation was one of the organizations we reached out to advise us on that process as well. That's been really fun.
Yeah, they have a lot of my money. We have our whole property is native plants, so that's just great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question for Frank.
Yes.
The dissertations that you talked about,
yes,
are they available somewhere for someone if they wanted to read them? Are they published somewhere?
I can make sure you can get them.
That's so the talking about these are my people and the quotes from the teachers and the students, that's so powerful.
Yeah, they if you read them, I mean, there's some material in there which just brought tears to my eyes. The kinds of things that were said. I just picked out some quotes I thought would work for today. But I remember one of the teachers talking about how some of his colleagues were just into making sure they could get superiors. Mm-hmm. And he said, whereas he and his middle school colleagues were all really concerned about the development of their young people and making sure they had the tools to go on in life and be productive citizens. Not necessarily musicians as such, but be productive citizens, and that what they do in class is going to lead them to have a better life. So, but to hear the teachers say that was just wonderful. So yeah, and hearing what teachers have to say when you actually can get to it without some of the prejudices we have, it's quite wonderful. So, yeah, I can get those to you.
That would be amazing. I think just having something like that in a just a thoughtfully produced way would be phenomenal. And I appreciate where has the students that did those dissertations, where are they now?
Marshawn had been at West LA College. He's moved back to Florida where he's from and is working as an administrator in a community college there. And Johanna is a middle school teacher in Irvine. She is still a middle school teacher. She does not know what her next step will be.
Do any of us?
Yeah, she really does not know. She really misses being engaged in the research process. And so she's really considering maybe moving to a different level. And that's a decision she has to make. But, I just put in a grant proposal to kind of do her work at 3 other school sites, which be really interesting to see schools that are not in Irvine, and how they react. And I have a feeling she's going to find out the same thing, which is exactly so. We're hoping, what I've asked for is funds to cover her to do the work, and while she hires a sub, so that kind of thing.
Yeah. We do have a question from the chat. It's from Sandy. If you had to sum up the benefits of arts education in a saying or a slogan that you would wear on a t-shirt, what would that be?
My gosh, I love that question.
Personally, I hate sloganeering. It reduces important ideas to something which just cheapens what we do. That's how I personally feel about it. So, but doesn't that mean other people can get some? And Evelyn, do you have something that you would bring up?
It just makes me think that arts education can take many different shapes. Like you could have arts education that's actually really damaging to our students.
Yes.
The kind of art that does not connect them to their humanity or to each other or to their communities. That is more about perhaps, very skills focused in a way that is not about the art. It's about a specific set of masteries, and I would offer too that often, and hopefully less often, but we tend to center cultural voices and artists that are not as diverse as they should be or they could be, right? So the idea of arts educators really branching out so that the way we teach the arts, the way that we draw inspiration, the ways we choose to kind of draw inspirations from diverse voices actually represents the world we want to build with our students, and we want them to be living in 20, 30, 100 years, right? So that's what I'm referring. Like, I think arts education can perpetuate injustices because it's so much about representation, right? And it's so much about uplifting specific messages and voices. So how can we utilize the arts as a very conscious way of bringing justice, creating pockets of justice in our neighborhoods and in our classrooms? But if I hear you 1,000%, Frank. I think books can be written about why the arts and why they're so important. But to me, the heart of it is interconnectedness. Right? It is such a powerful, magical, transformational tool to reveal that we are interconnected with each other, but also to our worlds, and that we can be amazing stewards through the arts, because we get to understand the world better through the arts, and ourselves through the arts. I don't know. It doesn't fit in a teacher, but
but now that I said what I said, I'll go back and say art for people's sake. Bingo. I was sat there thinking, and then the other thing. I don't know if you remember or saw the movie Whiplash with a jazz drummer trying to learn the craft and a very nasty music teacher, which almost every music student I know has had a teacher like that. And so, it's very, and that's why it's essential that what we do be ethical. And at the heart of being ethical is how do we treat people? So now I can go back and say art for people's sake.
Art makes people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to make Frank a t-shirt, and it's just going to say, why the why?
Yeah, why the why?
So why?
Arts education. I can see the whole design and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got another question. What new opportunities have emerged in arts education with the pandemic and distance learning?
Ooh, boy. I will say in music, the first reaction of most music teachers is, we can't do that. And then very quickly, they began to adapt. And we have seen a lot of composition, a lot of songwriting. There are now programs where people can play together over the internet. I mean, there has just been so much growth in this of people really stepping up to the plate and finding new ways of teaching. Or I almost say they so much change what they teach as they make sure that what they're doing really does connect the kids and keeps them going. So, I mean, I think we have seen that. And it's been quite wonderful to actually see. And I know everyone can't wait till we get back to, quote, real classrooms. But we're all, I have seen students connect in online classes in ways I hadn't seen them connect before. The use of the breakout room in Zoom has put students together who would never have talked together before. And then they become friends, and then they create their own chat rooms outside of class. And they come up with creative projects outside of class. I mean, and then the other thing is there are organizations that have been on the periphery of education that are community organizations that are really coming to the fore. And I see a real opportunity for the school-based organizations and the community-based organizations to start working together to really make things happen, to new things happen and exciting things happen. So that's what I've seen. And I just looked at how Evelyn was able to negotiate teaching online. Oh man, it's brilliant, Evelyn.
Well, gosh, everything you said, highlight, circle, exclamation point, 100%, Frank. I think it's helped us see very clearly what is truly important. Like just simmer it down, like what is at the heart of what needs to be in an educational space, right? And that is for us is being like relationships. How do you build relationships with your students in this way? It's also reveal the level of inequity in our different communities and how do you resource students in this way? Like, for example, for visual arts, like I'm having the students get a box and create an art studio in a box, put some tinfoil in it, find some recycled paper, put your own, like how do you resource folks that are in very, very different, socioeconomically, in terms of access, in terms of like, do they have parent support, etc. I mean, how are they dealing with distance learning social emotionally? Do they have support for that? So everything that I feel like our communities and our society was struggling with got augmented, in my opinion. It just like became really transparent, like very obvious, very out there, right? And I'm literally seeing it based on who shows up, who's able to show up. So looking at the school as an incredible resource and to be able to create, again, I just keep thinking of justice, like how can the school be a place where a new form of care can be imagined, a new way or different ways in which we can resource each other, resource families, and connect them to really vital things that they need. So that's being very impactful in some ways. Very sad to see the differences, and then trying to support people in very different ways. So talk about differentiation, that this year has been that, like so-and-so needs these and so-and-so needs a very different thing, right? So again, teachers are superheroes, they're incredible, and administrators, everything you're doing. The other thing that's been an incredible opportunity, though, like for example, with my college students, a couple of weeks ago, we were meeting with an incredible artist, theater artist from who was joining us from Atlanta. This is somebody who I know will change some of my theater students' trajectories. And if it hadn't been for now, I literally would have thought, I just don't have the money to fly you in and bring you in connection with my students. But I was able to pay an honorarium for her to be with us for an hour and change people's lives. You know what I mean? So I'm going to keep that learning for the future. I want to see okay, Zoom and other platforms have helped us erase boundaries and erase borders in ways that I think part of them were, they were never there, but we had them in our brains, or I had them in my brain. And so therefore I just was functioning within that box, those boundaries.
Permission.
Yes.
So how do we kind of keep those good parts in?
I've always been hesitant to bring people in via Zoom. Just I like being in person.
Yes.
And we have discovered we can have student teaching seminars and get a lot done and really connect this way. And then, I discovered that you could teach songwriting on this platform, and students will begin to talk about things in class and small groups that they might not have talked about in an in-person class. We looked at music of the COVID-19 thing. Yeah, there were jingles like crazy being written about it, and some really silly songs. But then there started to be really serious songs, and our students were scattered. I had a student in Bombay, another one in Shanghai, another one in Turkey in this class. And they, no matter what time it was, they would come to class so they could be together. And then one young lady, and this one shocked me. She grew up in Orange County, and she's Chinese American. And she wrote a song about the prejudice that she was feeling. And it made all of us very aware of the anti-Asian feeling in the States long before the Atlanta shootings happened. And she was able to express that and share that with us through song online that she probably wouldn't have in person in class. So this has presented opportunities for people to connect at a very deep level. And I'm hoping we can keep some of this going.
Absolutely. We have one more question. This will be our last question. How can the arts help us collectively build a better world? How are we enabling our students to thrive in what seems to be a new world moving forward?
Well, I'll pop in. I discovered creating opportunities by making art, music or art, enables them to connect together very deeply and discuss things they might not have been willing to discuss before, as I just pointed out. And for their audience, which are their peers, they discover that people are very supportive. And to have that support from people who they didn't know before the class started. By that time the class was their friends. To realize that you can develop that, and that the creating together is the key to enabling that empathy, that shared intentionality, that shared community. That's so super important, and we got to keep.
Yeah, I just think back to your portrait of the graduate, Samantha, and those are the values and those are the qualities of the folks that will imagine the future. That's it. how can we, as arts educators, with our fellow colleagues, our classroom teachers, administrators, how can we create spaces where liberation and freedom and justice can be rehearsed in our little studios and classrooms and choirs, et cetera. And we can rehearse what a just society could be. We could rehearse what equity might feel like and look like. I've been following a lot of our thought leaders and creative leaders, and they are. I hear a theme, and the theme is we need a different set of imaginations. We need space for our imagination to create a vision of a world that we don't have here yet. What kind of imagination do we need to, our spaces for imaginations do we need to have so that folks can imagine what a thriving community of diverse, inclusive people will feel like, will look like? What we need an imagination, because it's like science fiction, right? It's like, right, like Butler's work. You're shooting out into you understand that you're coming from a lineage of thinking and making and action and all of that, but where we're shooting for is so open, and for that we need to match it with wonderful, informed, thoughtful, value-driven imaginations. And so that, I think, is what the arts can provide. It's like where is everything is possible. And so if everything is possible, how can I rehearse imagining a thriving community where you can thrive, I can thrive, my other friend can thrive. They can be their whole full selves, complex, beautiful, whole full selves. And I think the arts can do that. The arts can do that. I don't know.
You just gave the anti-slogan guy another slogan. Okay. Arts is rehearsing for life.
There you go.
Education is rehearsing for life. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a wonderful way to think of it too. When we rehearse, what are we doing? We're practicing how we want to perform.
Yeah. You're also practicing what it is we want to do in life.
Right. Exactly.
How we want to be in life. That's I can use that with student teachers.
We're going to make you t-shirts, Frank.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to, next time I come back out to your school, you're going to have this box of t-shirts for me.
That's right. All right. I just want to, from Sandy in the chat, thank you all for such a vision of hope and inclusiveness. I agree. I think this whole week for us in our district has been a celebration of creativity and arts, and from just pulling this community of artists and providing a digital virtual platform for people to share what they're doing has been a joyous experience all week long. And I want to thank you both for being here with us tonight and sharing all of your knowledge and expertise and your stories and experiences and lessons that you've done with your students. I hope it will inspire others to go on and create and be artistic citizens.
Thank you for inviting me and both of us.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for connecting us.
Oh, I'm really glad. It's also nice. Evelyn and I know each other kind of peripherally because of a former student of mine who had the wonderful opportunity to work with her for 4 years. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you better. Okay. Thank you.
All right. I have a couple of thank yous for the event to share with you before we say goodbye. Thank you to our Arts Week volunteers, Jill Redding and Vanessa Pinedo, taking care of our art contest. that we will reveal the results of tomorrow morning. Sponsorships and donations, Andy Jiang and Cami Trong have helped out with that. Joanna Ward and Fan Shu are additional volunteers that have helped with various things. All of our presenters and participants for throughout this week, especially in today and our special webinars. It's been something that we can keep and use as a resource for many, many years to come, and I so appreciate your time. Our Gabrielino High School Key Club helped promote this event. All of our volunteer art contest judges who helped with that process. Our VAPA Advisory Council, who Sandy Seifert, who's in the chat today, helped me develop that, and they've been helping. It's a group of stakeholders throughout our community to help guide visual and performing arts throughout our district. And of course, our San Gabriel Unified Governing Board. Without their unwavering support of visual and performing arts, we would not be here today. I also want to thank these amazing organizations who have helped support visual and performing arts in our district this past year, and all of these families here that you can see listed here who have donated directly to support this event. We are accepting donations and sponsorships of any amount. 100% of the proceeds goes to support the further implementation of our VAPA strategic plan, which was put into place in June of 2019 as an effort to fill gaps and be more inclusive and comprehensive with our arts education in our district. And that plan is for public viewing on sgusdvapa.org. And that brings us to the end of this awesome conversation today. I'm so grateful for everyone who tuned in and will be tuning in. And thank you for sharing your time and expertise with all of us.
Thank you. Bye.